Imagine you've lost your life partner, and now all you have is a small daughter battling a serious illness. Your life has become an endless fight against poverty and sickness. Then one day the worst nightmare strikes your daughter. Has a high fever and can't breathe, but you only have $5 left in your pocket. In that moment of desperation, what would you do? This is the story of David, a father who made a choice that seemed to have no turning back, to become a thief to save his child. But that very action unlocked a chain of unexpected events, a tense confrontation in a courtroom where a 5-year-old girl stood up and touched the cold heart of a strict judge. And the little girl's promise sparked a real-life miracle that changed everyone's lives. Join me in listening to this touching story and believing that sometimes a miracle only appears when love is strong enough to conquer fear. Dawn in the suburban neighborhood of Pine Creek typically began with the distant echo of church bells and the cheerful chirping of birds on ancient oak trees. But in David Scott's small second-floor apartment, dawn was always marked by the blaring sound of his alarm clock at 5 a.m. That sound wasn't to call him to work, but to begin a new battle, the fight against poverty and sickness. David, a 35-year-old man with the broad shoulders and calloused hands of a construction worker, silently turned off the alarm. He looked over at the small bed beside him. His daughter, Lily, was fast asleep. Her messy brown hair splayed across the white pillow. She was thin and small, wearing an old worn-out nightgown, but her face was strangely peaceful. David leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. He could feel her skin burning hot against his lips. A familiar fear, colder than the winter wind, washed over him. Lily, only 5 years old, had been living with a vicious asthma since she was 2 after her mother passed away. Whenever the weather turned cold or a flu season struck her, illness would worsen, making it difficult for her to breathe, causing her to cough violently, and sometimes leading to terrifying seizures. David was used to staying up all night holding his daughter in his arms, singing the simple lullabies his wife Sarah used to sing until Lily's breathing stabilized. His love for his wife, now a father's love, was David's only motivation. He worked tirelessly, never shying away from overtime no matter the weather. He had sold his old truck, his commemorative wristwatch, and even his wedding ring, the only thing he had left of Sarah to cover his daughter's medical expenses. But seasonal construction work was never enough to afford the expensive medications, doctor's visits, and costly treatments. No matter how hard he tried, he felt like he was losing this fight. This morning, things were worse than ever. Lily had a high fever. Her small body was hot like a flame. Her blue eyes, which usually sparkled like 2 gems, were now dull and lifeless. "Daddy," Lily whispered, her voice weak and hoarse. "I can't breathe." David's heart felt like it was being squeezed. He felt a jolt of cold electricity run down his spine from the top of his head to his toes. He knew his daughter needed medicine immediately, but in his pocket he had only $5 in loose change after paying the rent and buying some cheap food for last night's dinner. He had already gone to the pharmacy and received a cold answer: no cash, no medicine. The hospital demanded insurance papers which David had lost a long time ago. In desperation, David picked up his phone and called his boss, Mr. Miller. "Mr. Miller, I need an advance. My daughter is very sick. She needs medicine right now." David's voice trembled like a plea. "David, I'm sorry, Mr." Miller's voice on the phone was flat and unemotional. "Company policy doesn't allow salary advances. You know that." David hung up, feeling his whole world collapse. He knelt beside Lily's bed, watching her struggle to breathe. Her lips were slightly blue, and her small hands were trembling. He knew that without medicine, Lily might not make it through the night. He remembered his promise to Sarah that he would never let Lily suffer alone. That love now had become a haunting obsession, a heavy pressure on all his decisions. He had no other choice. That night, after Lily fell into a fitful sleep, David put on his old jacket, kissed her forehead one last time, and stepped into the cold night. He felt as if he was walking into a swamp. His conscience screamed, but his love for his daughter overshadowed everything. From an honest, hard-working man, he was about to become a thief. The pharmacy on Elm Street was still brightly lit and busy. Inside, families were buying medicine for their children, the elderly were filling prescriptions, and young people were buying cough drops. David stood outside the glass door for 10 minutes, his hands trembling not from the biting cold, but from fear. He had never done anything wrong in his entire life. He had always tried to do the right thing, but his daughter's pain had pushed him to the limit. He pulled his baseball cap low, hiding his tear-filled eyes, and walked into the pharmacy. The jingling of the doorbell felt like a foreboding of fate. Inside, thousands of bottles and boxes of medicine were neatly arranged on the shelves like boxes full of hope. He found a bottle of children's fever reducer and a special medication to help Lily breathe more easily. Together, they cost more than 2 days of his wages. His heart pounded so hard he thought the whole pharmacy could hear it. He secretly hid them in his jacket pocket. Every second that passed was an agony. He tried to walk calmly, but his feet felt as heavy as lead. Just as he reached the door, a strong hand rested on his shoulder. "Excuse me, sir." A security guard with kind eyes, but a firm voice said, "I need you to empty your pockets." David's world collapsed. He thought about running, but he knew that would only make things worse. With tears in his eyes, he took out the 2 boxes of medicine and gave them to the guard. "Please," he whispered. "My daughter is very sick. She needs this medicine. I don't have the money, but I promise I'll pay you back later." The security guard looked at him with sympathy but shook his head. "I'm sorry, sir. That's the law. I have to call the police." 20 minutes later, police cars with flashing lights surrounded the pharmacy. David was handcuffed and placed in a car under the curious gaze of his neighbors. All he could think about was Lily at home alone, sick, and waiting for him to return with the medicine. News of David's arrest spread throughout the small town. Mrs. Peterson, an elderly neighbor, found Lily crying in the apartment and took her to the hospital. The doctors gave Lily the necessary medication, but they also told Mrs. Peterson that Lily would have to go to an orphanage until her father's legal issues were resolved. David's case was assigned to Judge Eleanor Vance. She was known throughout the county as a fair but strict judge who didn't accept any excuses, not even the saddest stories. 3 years ago, Eleanor had a terrible car accident that left her unable to walk. Since then, she had immersed herself in her work, becoming even more focused on upholding the law. On the morning of David's trial, the courtroom was packed with people from the community. Some came to support David knowing he was a good father in a terrible situation. Others believed that stealing was wrong regardless of the reason. David sat at the defendant's table in a borrowed suit, his hands clasped together, his eyes red from crying. He hadn't seen Lily in 2 weeks. He only knew that his daughter kept asking about him. Judge Eleanor wheeled her wheelchair to her bench and looked out at the crowded courtroom. She had read David's file the night before and knew all the details of the case: a desperate father stealing medicine for his sick daughter. It was a situation that made her job difficult and heartbreaking. All rise for the Honorable Judge Eleanor Vance. A court officer announced even though everyone could see that the judge herself couldn't stand. The prosecutor, a young man named Mark Thompson, stood up and began to present the case against David. He talked about how theft was a crime that businesses needed to be protected and that making exceptions for sad stories would lead to chaos. Your Honor, Mark said, adjusting his tie, while we all sympathize with Mr. Mitchell's circumstances, we cannot let emotion override justice. He committed an armed robbery by threatening the security guard and stealing merchandise worth more than $100. David's lawyer, a public defender, did her best to defend him. She spoke of David's clean record, his love for his daughter, and the impossible choice he faced. But Judge Eleanor had heard these arguments many times before. The law was clear, and her job was to uphold it regardless of personal feelings. Just as Judge Eleanor was about to speak, the courtroom door opened with a loud creak. Everyone turned their heads. It was Mrs. Peterson, holding the hand of a small girl with brown hair and green eyes. It was Lily. She looked around the large courtroom, her eyes wide, searching for her father. When she saw David sitting at the first table, her face lit up and she began to run towards him. "Daddy!" she called, her small voice echoing through the silent courtroom. The court officer tried to stop her, but Judge Eleanor raised her hand. "Let the girl go to her father," she said softly. Lily ran and jumped into David's arms. He held her tightly, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "I'm sorry, my love. I made a big mistake." Lily pulled back, looking at her father with sparkling blue eyes. "It's okay, Daddy. I know you just wanted to help me get better." The entire courtroom watched the emotional reunion of the father and daughter. Many people wiped away tears, including some who had come to see David punished. Judge Eleanor cleared her throat. "Mr. Mitchell, while I understand your motives, the law on theft is very clear. You took something that did not belong to you, and there must be consequences." That's when Lily first looked up at the judge. She saw the wheelchair, the sad look on Judge Eleanor's face, and something that adults couldn't see. Lily had always been special. From a very young age, she could sense everything about people, their pain, their sorrow, and even their hope. Without asking anyone's permission, Lily left her father and walked towards the judge's bench. Her small shoes made little squeak sounds on the hard floor, and everyone watched in amazement as this brave little girl walked straight to one of the most powerful people in the room. "Your Honor!" Lily's clear voice rang out, breaking the suffocating silence of the courtroom. "My daddy is a good man. He only took the medicine because I was very sick and he loves me very much." Judge Eleanor Vance leaned forward in her wheelchair, her eyes fixed on the little girl. "Sweet child, I understand that, but your father still broke the law." Lily nodded seriously as if she understood. Then she did something no one expected. She held out her small hand and gently touched Judge Eleanor's hand. The entire courtroom held its breath. Eleanor felt a strange current, not painful, but a warmth spreading from that small hand. "I can see," Lily set her hand still on the judge's, "that your legs don't work and that makes you very sad. My daddy says that sometimes when people are hurt, it's hard for them to see the love around them." Silence fell over the room. Eleanor felt a lump in her throat. How could a little girl know the pain she had hidden for so many years? The pain wasn't just physical helplessness. It was the loneliness and loss of someone who once loved life and freedom. "I have a gift," Lily continued, her sparkling green eyes looking directly at Eleanor. "I can help people feel better when they are hurt. If you let my daddy come home with me, I promise I'll help your legs work again." The courtroom erupted. Laughter, whispers, and protests filled the air. Prosecutor Mark Thompson shot up, his face red. "Your Honor, this is preposterous. The testimony of a child cannot be the basis for a legal decision." But Judge Eleanor didn't hear those words. She looked deep into Lily's eyes, and a glimmer of hope she thought had died long ago ignited in her heart. Eleanor slammed her gavel. "Order, order in my courtroom." The noise gradually subsided. "Lily," Judge Eleanor said gently, "what you're saying is impossible. The doctors say I will never walk again." Lily smiled a smile that lit up her whole face. Sometimes doctors don't know everything. Sometimes a miracle happens when people believe and love each other enough. She released the judge's hand. "I'm not asking you to believe me right now, Judge. I'm just asking for a chance to prove it. Please let my daddy come home and I will show you that the impossible is possible." Eleanor looked at David, then at Lily, and then at the courtroom packed with waiting faces. Her reason screamed that this was foolish. Children can't heal paralysis. Miracles don't happen in courtrooms. The law is the law, and emotions cannot change it. But her heart, the part that had been locked away since the accident, whispered something else. What if? What would happen if this special little girl could actually do what she promised? What if hope wasn't just a foolish dream? She gripped the armrests of her wheelchair tightly. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath. David, at the defendant's table, was also holding his breath, knowing that his and his daughter's future depended on Eleanor's decision. She looked at Lily one last time. The little girl stood silently, her blue eyes full of confidence and love. Lily wasn't begging or crying. She was simply offering a gift, an impossible-sounding promise that felt strangely real. "Your Honor," Prosecutor Mark Thompson interrupted. "Surely you're not considering—" "Mr. Thompson," Judge Eleanor said decisively, "I am considering everything." She looked around the courtroom at the faces watching her. Some looked hopeful, some were shocked, and a few were angry. This was not how a trial was supposed to happen. Judges were supposed to follow the law, not make decisions based on the promise of a 5-year-old child. But Judge Eleanor had spent 3 years in that wheelchair. 3 years believing her life was over. 3 years just existing without truly feeling alive. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to take a risk. The silence stretched for what seemed like hours, but was probably only a few minutes. Finally, Judge Eleanor sat up straight in her wheelchair and looked directly at Lily. "Little girl," she said, her voice echoing through the courtroom, "you have made a very serious promise to me. Do you understand that a promise is never to be broken?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Yes, Your Honor. I always keep my promises." "And you truly believe you can help me walk again?" "I don't just believe," Lily said with a child's certainty. "I know I can." Judge Eleanor took a deep breath. When she spoke again, her voice trembled slightly, but her words were crystal clear. "Mr. David Mitchell," she said, looking at David, "you have committed a crime and ordinarily I would sentence you to prison. However, your daughter has made an offer that I find intriguing." The courtroom buzzed with whispers and gasps. "Therefore," Judge Eleanor continued, "I am going to do something I have never done in 20 years on this bench. I will suspend your sentencing for 30 days. If within that time your daughter can fulfill her promise to me, all charges against you will be dismissed." Prosecutor Mark Thompson shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. You cannot base legal decisions on the fantastical claims of a child." "Mr. Thompson," Judge Eleanor calmly replied, "in 30 days we will know whether the little girl's claims are fantastical or not. Until then, Mr. Mitchell, you are free to go home with your daughter." David couldn't believe what he was hearing. Tears streamed down his face as he realized he was going home, at least for now. But then Judge Eleanor raised a hand for silence. "However," she said, and the word hung in the air like a storm cloud, "if your daughter is unable to fulfill her promise within 30 days, Mr. Mitchell, you will be required to return to this courtroom to face not only the original charges, but also additional charges of contempt of court." and for allowing your child to make false statements to a judge. David's happy face fell as he realized what this meant. If Lily couldn't heal the judge, he would face even more severe consequences than before. But before he could say anything, Lily turned around and took his hand. "Don't worry, Daddy," she said with that confident smile. "It's going to be okay." As the trial ended, people began to leave the courtroom buzzing with what they had just witnessed. Some believed that Lily truly had a special ability, while others thought Judge Eleanor had lost her mind. David knelt and hugged his daughter tightly. "Lily, my love, what you did was very brave. But what if you can't actually heal the judge? What if we've only made things worse?" Lily looked at her father with her magical green eyes and smiled. "Daddy, do you remember what Mom used to say about miracles?" David's tears fell again as he recalled his late wife's favorite saying. She said that miracles happen when love is stronger than fear. "That's right," Lily said, squeezing his hand. "And I love you more than I'm afraid of anything. The judge is scared too. But she has more love in her than she thinks. I'm going to help her remember that." As they walked out of the courthouse together, hand in hand, David felt a mixture of hope and dread. He was free at least for 30 days, but after that, his fate would depend entirely on whether his 5-year-old daughter could accomplish something everyone believed to be an impossible miracle. Judge Eleanor remained in the courtroom long after everyone else had left. She sat in her wheelchair staring at the spot where Lily had stood replaying the conversation in her head. What had she done? In her 20 years as a judge, she had never made a decision based on emotion rather than law. She had built her reputation on fairness, logic, and consistency. Now she had just agreed to drop charges against a thief if his 5-year-old daughter could heal her paralyzed legs. But as she sat there in the empty courtroom, Judge Eleanor realized something that shocked her. For the first time in 3 years, she felt a sense of anticipation for tomorrow. For the first time since the accident, she had something to hope for, even if that hope seemed impossible. She wheeled herself over to the window and looked out at the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, a little girl with green eyes was preparing to try to do the impossible. And even though everything logical told her otherwise, Judge Eleanor found herself believing that maybe, just maybe, a miracle really could happen. What she didn't know was that Lily's promise would set in motion events that neither of them could have imagined. And the next 30 days would change their lives in ways that went far beyond just healing paralyzed legs. The real miracle had only just begun. The next morning, Judge Eleanor Vance woke up in her luxurious apartment feeling something different. The morning sun streamed through the window, but the feeling it brought was not the usual monotony. Instead, it was a sense of excitement, a glimmer of hope that she hadn't felt in 3 years. She wondered what Lily was doing right now. Was the little girl really thinking of a way to heal her? Or was she just an innocent child who had made an impossible promise? Eleanor moved from her bed to her wheelchair, a daily routine, but today was different. Today, she had hope. At the same time, a few miles away, David was making breakfast for Lily in their small apartment. He watched her eat her cereal, amazed by her composure. If it had been him, after making such a monumental promise, he would have been crazy with fear. But Lily was just humming a song, swinging her legs under the table as if yesterday had been just another ordinary day. "Lily," David said carefully, sitting down opposite her. "Honey, about the promise you made to Judge Vance. I'm still worried." "I know, Daddy," Lily said between spoonfuls of cereal. "You're worried because you haven't seen my gift yet. But don't worry, it will work." David's heart pounded. "What gift, Lily? You've never healed anyone before." Lily looked at her father with wise eyes that seemed too old for her young face. "Remember Mrs. Peterson with the bad back last month? She couldn't get out of bed." David nodded. He remembered the elderly neighbor who had been bedridden with back pain for a week. "And do you remember I asked to visit her? You said yes." Lily continued. I held her hand and told her a story about a magical garden where all the flowers could sing. The next day, her back was much better. David's eyes widened. He remembered Mrs. Peterson's surprising recovery, but he just thought she was lucky. Do you remember Tommy Peterson downstairs who broke his arm? Lily asked. David remembered the 8-year-old who had fallen off his bike and broken his arm. The doctors said it would take 6 weeks to heal. I drew him a picture of a superhero with strong arms, Lily said casually. And I told him his arm would be stronger than ever. It healed in just 3 weeks. David stared at his daughter, his mind reeling. Was it possible? Had Lily been healing people without him ever realizing it? But Lily, David said gently, helping someone's back feel better or a broken arm heal faster is very different from helping someone who can't walk to suddenly get up. Lily finished her cereal and looked at her father seriously. Daddy, Judge Vance's legs aren't broken like Tommy's arm. Her legs are fine. The problem is in her heart. What do you mean, honey? When I touched her hand yesterday, I could feel all the sadness inside her, Lily explained. She's so sad and scared that she's forgotten how to believe in good things. Sometimes, when people are sad for too long, their bodies forget how to work properly too. David didn't know what to say. His 5-year-old daughter was saying things that sounded like advanced psychology or spiritual healing. So how are you going to help her? He asked. Lily smiled brightly. I'm going to show her how to remember joy, and when she remembers how to be happy, her legs will remember how to walk. That same morning, Judge Eleanor Vance was in her home office trying to focus on other cases, but she couldn't. She couldn't stop thinking about Lily's confident smile and the strange feeling when the little girl touched her hand. Eleanor had seen dozens of doctors over the past 3 years. They all told her the same thing: her spinal cord was severely damaged in the accident and she would never walk again. It was medically impossible. But something about Lily made her wonder if there were things beyond what medicine could explain. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Dr. Julian Carter, her longtime doctor. Eleanor, Dr. Carter said, his voice full of concern. I heard about what happened in your courtroom yesterday. The whole town is talking about it. I'm sure they are, Eleanor replied, feeling slightly embarrassed. Listen, I've been your doctor for 15 years and I care about you. I don't want you to put your hope in something that is impossible. Your injury is permanent. Eleanor was silent for a moment. Julian, what if the injury isn't just physical? What if there's more to healing than just mending broken bones and damaged nerves? Eleanor, I understand you're going through a tough time, Dr. Carter said. But please don't let desperation make you believe in false hope. That little girl, no matter how sweet, cannot heal you. After Eleanor hung up, doubt crept into her mind. Maybe Dr. Carter was right. Maybe she had been foolish. But then she remembered the feeling when Lily touched her hand. A warm, tingling sensation that she hadn't felt in her legs since before the accident. That afternoon, David took Lily to the park. He watched her play on the swing, her laughter echoing through the air like music. Other children were playing nearby, and David noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Whenever a child fell or started crying, the other children often ignored them. But not Lily. Whenever someone got hurt, she would run over, help them up, and somehow make them feel better. She would whisper something in their ear, give them a hug, or just simply hold their hand until they stopped crying. That little girl is special, a voice said from behind David. David turned to see an old man sitting on a nearby bench. He had kind eyes and a warm smile. Excuse me, David asked. Your daughter, the old man said, nodding towards Lily. I've been bringing my grandson to this park for 2 years, and I've never seen a child like her. She has what my grandmother called the gift. The gift, David asked, sitting down next to the old man. Some people are born with the ability to heal others, the old man explained. Not with medicine or surgery, but with love and belief. My grandmother had it too. She could make sick people well just by believing in them and helping them believe in themselves. David watched Lily help a crying boy who had scraped his knee. She knelt down beside him, whispered something in his ear, and gently touched the wound. In a moment, the boy stopped crying and ran back to play with his friends. But is it real? David asked. Or do they just feel better because someone was kind to them? The old man smiled. Does it matter if love and kindness can heal? Isn't that the truest miracle of all? 3 days passed, and Judge Eleanor found herself constantly thinking about Lily. She tried to go back to her normal routine, but everything felt different. She started doing more exercises for her arms, eating healthier, and even smiling at people she passed on the street. On Thursday morning, Eleanor made a decision that surprised even herself. She called David's phone number, which she had gotten from the court file. Hello? David answered anxiously. Mr. Mitchell, this is Judge Eleanor Vance, she said. I was wondering if I could speak with Lily. David was silent for a moment, perhaps wondering if this was a trick. Yes, Your Honor, she's right here. Hello, Judge. Lily's cheerful voice came over the phone. Hello, Lily, Eleanor said, and she found herself smiling just at the sound of the child's voice. I was wondering how you plan on helping me. Oh, I'm so glad you called, Lily said excitedly. I've been thinking about you every day. Could you meet me somewhere so we can be friends first? It's hard to help someone if I don't know them very well. Eleanor was surprised. In all her years as a judge, no one had ever asked her to be their friend before meeting them in court. Where would you like to meet? Eleanor asked. Do you know the big park on Maple Street? There's a pond with ducks and lots of pretty flowers. Can you meet me there tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Eleanor looked at her calendar. She had planned to review case files tomorrow afternoon, but something told her this was more important. Yes, Lily, I will meet you there. Great, Lily said. And Judge Vance, don't bring your judge clothes or your serious face. Just bring yourself. The next afternoon, Judge Eleanor Vance wheeled herself to the park. She felt more nervous than she had in years, a feeling she hadn't experienced since before the accident. She had listened to Lily wearing a simple blue dress instead of her stern judge's suit, and had even put on a little makeup. Eleanor found Lily sitting by the pond, wearing a cheerful yellow dress, as bright as sunshine and feeding the ducks. David sat on a bench nearby watching his daughter with a look that was both loving and worried. Judge Vance! Lily exclaimed, waving excitedly. Come sit with me. Eleanor wheeled her chair closer to the edge of the pond. Lily immediately pulled out more breadcrumbs from her bag. Here, Lily said, pouring some into Eleanor's hand. The ducks are very hungry today. For the next hour, Eleanor did something she hadn't done in years. She played. She fed the ducks, listened to Lily tell stories about each one's personality, and even laughed when a brave one tried to climb onto her wheelchair for more food. Judge Vance, Lily said as they watched the ducks swim in the pond. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetie, Eleanor said. What was your favorite thing to do before your accident? Eleanor thought for a moment. I used to love to dance, she said softly. I took ballet when I was a little girl, and even as an adult, I would often dance around the house whenever I felt happy. Dance, Lily said, clapping her hands. I love to dance too. Do you miss it? Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. Yes, I do. Lily stood up and held out her hand. Do you want to dance with me right now? Eleanor looked at Lily's small hand. Lily, I can't dance. I can't stand up. You don't need to stand up to dance, Lily said with a smile. Your hands can dance, your head can dance, your heart can dance. Come on, I'll show you. Lily began to move her arms gracefully as if she were swimming through the air. She swayed her head from side to side and twirled slowly. See? I'm dancing with my whole body, but my legs aren't moving at all. Eleanor watched the beautiful child dancing by the pond, and a miracle happened. She found herself moving her hands in rhythm with Lily. She swayed her shoulders and tilted her head. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt like she was dancing again. You're dancing, Judge Vance, Lily said joyfully. You're dancing. Eleanor looked down at her hands moving gracefully through the air and realized Lily was right. She was dancing not in the way she used to, but in a new way full of beauty and freedom. Tears of happiness streamed down Eleanor's cheeks as she continued to move her arms and shoulders to Lily's gentle rhythm. She felt a lightness as if a great weight had been lifted from her heart. How does it feel? Lily asked, still moving gracefully. I feel... Eleanor paused, searching for the words. I feel alive. After their dance by the pond, Lily walked over to Eleanor's wheelchair and gently placed her small hands on her knees. Judge Vance, Lily said softly. Your legs are asleep, but they're not broken. They're just waiting for your heart to wake up completely. Eleanor looked down at Lily's hands on her knees. She couldn't feel the touch, but somehow she could sense it. What do you mean? Eleanor asked. When you got hurt in the car crash, your body was hurt, but your spirit was hurt too, Lily explained. Your spirit got so scared and sad that it went to sleep. And when the spirit sleeps, sometimes the body doesn't work right. Eleanor stared at this wise little girl. And you think you can wake up my spirit? Lily smiled. I think your spirit has already started waking up. Didn't you feel it when we were dancing? Eleanor thought about the joy she had felt just minutes before. The lightness in her heart. The feeling of being truly alive. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I did. That's the first step, Lily said. Can you come back tomorrow? We can feed the ducks some more, and maybe we can dance some more, and I'll tell you stories about all the beautiful things in the world that are waiting for you to rediscover. Eleanor nodded, feeling more hopeful than she had since her accident. Yes, Lily, I'll be back tomorrow. As Eleanor wheeled herself away from the park, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. She felt excited about tomorrow. She felt like her life had just started over. But what she didn't know was that Lily's gift of healing was about to face a test no one could have ever imagined. Because later that same evening something would happen that would make everyone wonder if miracles were real, or if they had just been fooling themselves. David was making dinner when his phone rang. It was Mrs. Peterson, her voice frantic. David, you need to get here now, she said. There's been an accident at the park. It's about Judge Vance. David's blood ran cold. What happened? Is she okay? I don't know all the details, but someone saw her wheelchair overturned near the pond. They think she might have hit her head. The ambulance is taking her to the hospital right now. David looked at Lily, who was sitting at the kitchen table coloring. She looked up at him with knowing green eyes. Daddy, she said calmly, Judge Vance is going to be okay. But this is the test. This is where we find out if a miracle is real or not. David grabbed his keys with trembling hands. If something serious had happened to Judge Eleanor, their deal was off. He would go to jail and Lily would be back in an orphanage. But more than that, he was genuinely worried about the kind woman who had given them a chance. Come on, Lily, he said. We need to go to the hospital. I know, Daddy, Lily said, putting down her crayon. Judge Vance needs us more than ever now. Her spirit was just starting to wake up, and now it's scared again. But don't worry, sometimes the biggest miracles happen when things looked the most impossible. As they rushed to the hospital, David prayed that his daughter was right. Because if Lily couldn't help Judge Eleanor now when she needed it most, then maybe miracles really were just fairy tales after all. The test of Lily's gift was about to begin. The air in the hospital waiting room was thick with the smell of antiseptic and anxiety. David sat on a hard plastic chair, holding Lily's tiny hand tightly, as they waited for news about Judge Eleanor. A small crowd from the town had heard the news and gathered there, because in this small community, the story of the paralyzed judge and the mysterious little girl had become a symbol of hope. Everyone whispered and murmured, their eyes filled with worry. The double doors swung open and Dr. Julian Carter walked out, his face grave. David's heart sank at the sight of his expression. "Doctor, how is she?" David asked, standing up. Dr. Carter looked at the waiting faces. Judge Vance hit her head when her wheelchair tipped over near the pond. She has a severe concussion and has been unconscious for 2 hours. A collective gasp of worry spread through the waiting room. David felt the world spinning around him. "Is she going to be okay, doctor?" asked Mrs. Peterson, who was also there. "We are doing everything we can," Dr. Carter said. "But head injuries are unpredictable. The next 20 hours are critical. She needs to wake up soon or—" He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood his meaning. David looked down at Lily, expecting to see fear or sadness in her eyes, but instead, Lily was calm and determined. "Doctor," Lily spoke, her voice clear and confident. "Can I go in and see Judge Vance?" Dr. Carter was taken aback. He knelt down to her level. "Little girl, Judge Vance is very weak. She can't have visitors." "But I promised to help her," Lily said simply. "And she needs me now more than ever." David placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Lily, honey, maybe we should wait until the doctor says it's okay." But Lily shook her head. "Daddy, remember how I told you that Judge Vance's spirit was asleep? Now it's not just asleep, it's lost. The accident scared her spirit so much that it doesn't know its way back to her body. I need to help it find its way home." Everyone in the waiting room stared at the 5-year-old girl talking about souls and healing like a grown-up. Some were skeptical, some were filled with hope, and a few thought that Lily might be their only chance. Dr. Carter stood up slowly. "I'm sorry, but hospital policy does not allow children in the ICU." "Doctor!" A familiar voice rang out from behind them. Everyone turned to see Mark Thompson, the prosecutor from David's trial. He looked exhausted and worried. "Mr. Thompson," David said, surprised to see him there. Mark walked toward them. "I heard about Judge Vance's accident on the radio. I came here because—" He paused, his face full of discomfort. "Because I wanted to apologize." "Apologize for what?" David asked. "For not believing," Mark said softly. "I've been thinking about what happened in the courtroom all week. I've seen Judge Vance handle hundreds of cases, and I've never seen her make a decision based on emotion. She always follows logic and the law. But something about your daughter made her willing to take a chance." Mark looked at Lily with new respect. "If Judge Vance believed in you, then maybe I should too. Doctor, is there any way this little girl can see the judge?" Dr. Carter was torn. "Even if I wanted to, this goes against every hospital regulation. Judge Vance is unconscious. She won't even know the little girl is there." "But she will," Lily said with certainty. "And Judge Catherine's spirit will know even if her sleeping body doesn't realize it." An old woman sitting silently in a corner of the waiting room spoke up. "Doctor, what's the harm? It's not like the judge is going to wake up anyway." She didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. Dr. Carter looked around the waiting room at the hopeful faces watching him. He had been a doctor for 30 years, and he had always believed in science and medicine above all else. But sometimes, in cases like this, science wasn't enough. 5 minutes, he finally said. She has 5 minutes with Judge Vance, but that's it, and an adult must accompany her. David squeezed Lily's hand. Are you sure about this, honey? Lily looked up at her father with those wise eyes. Daddy, do you remember what Mom used to say about the hardest times? Tears welled up in David's eyes again as he recalled his wife's words. She said that the hardest times are when miracles happen, because that's when people need them the most. That's right, Lily said, smiling. And Judge Vance needs a miracle now more than ever. Dr. Carter led them down a long white hallway to the intensive care unit. The room was silent save for the beeping and humming of machines. Judge Eleanor lay in the hospital bed looking smaller and more fragile than David had ever seen her. IVs and wires connected her to various machines, her face pale and still. She looked so peaceful, Lily whispered, walking to the bedside without a hint of fear. David stayed near the door with Dr. Carter, worriedly watching his daughter approach the unconscious judge. Lily climbed onto a stool next to the bed so she could be at eye level with Judge Eleanor. She stared at the judge's still face for a long moment, then gently placed her small hand on Eleanor's arm. Hello, Judge Vance, Lily said softly. I know you can't hear me with your ears right now, but I hope you can hear me with your heart. The machines continued their steady beeping, but Judge Eleanor didn't stir. I know you're scared. Lily continued, her voice gentle and full of love. When you fell at the park, it made you remember the car accident, didn't it? It made you remember how scary it was when your body got hurt, and now your spirit is hiding. Dr. Carter watched in amazement as the little girl talked to his patient as if they were having a normal conversation. But Judge Vance, I need you to remember something important, Lily said, gently stroking the judge's arm. Do you remember how it felt when we danced by the pond? Do you remember how light and happy you felt? That happiness is still inside you. It's just hiding because it's scared. David held his breath as he watched his daughter pour her heart out to the unconscious woman. Your spirit isn't broken, Judge Vance. It's just lost in a dark place, like being lost in a forest at night. But I can see the path back to the light, and I'm going to help you get home. Lily closed her eyes and placed both of her small hands on Judge Eleanor's arm. The room seemed to fill with a warm golden light, although David wasn't sure if he was really seeing it or just feeling it. Do you see the path, Judge Vance? Lily whispered. It's made of all the beautiful memories you've forgotten. There's the memory of you dancing as a little girl. There's the memory of your first day as a judge, when you were so excited to help people. There's the memory of us feeding the ducks and laughing together. Dr. Carter looked at the monitors connected to Judge Eleanor. Her heart rate, which had been slow and irregular, began to stabilize and grow stronger. That's it, Lily said encouragingly. You're following the path back to the light. You're remembering who you really are. Not just a judge in a wheelchair, but a whole person full of love and hope and dreams. Judge Eleanor's fingers began to twitch slightly. She's having a response, Dr. Carter whispered in amazement. Lily opened her eyes and smiled at Judge Eleanor's still face. Judge Vance, I want you to remember something very important. Your accident didn't take away your ability to dance. It just changed the way you dance. And your wheelchair didn't make you any less whole. It just gave you a different way of moving through the world. Suddenly, Judge Eleanor's eyes fluttered open. She blinked several times, looking confused and disoriented. Judge Vance, Lily said joyfully. You woke up. Eleanor slowly turned her head and focused on Lily's bright smiling face. Lily, she whispered, her voice weak. What happened? Where am I? You're in the hospital, Dr. Carter said, rushing to check her vital signs. You had an accident at the park and hit your head. How do you feel? Judge Eleanor looked around the room trying to remember. I was at the park feeding the ducks with Lily. And then... She looked confused. Your wheelchair tipped over, David said gently. You were unconscious for hours. Judge Eleanor looked at Lily in amazement. But I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was lost in a dark place and I heard your voice calling me. You showed me a path made of light and you helped me find my way back. Lily smiled. It wasn't a dream, Judge Vance. Sometimes when people get hurt, their spirits get lost and need help finding their way home. I just helped you remember the way back to yourself. Dr. Carter checked Eleanor's reflexes with a small flashlight. This is extraordinary, he said. Judge Vance, can you tell me what year it is? Do you know where you are? Eleanor answered all of his questions perfectly. Her mind was clear and sharp with no signs of brain damage from the concussion. Doctor, Judge Eleanor said, I feel different. I feel better than I have in years. Well, you had a serious head injury, so it's normal to feel disoriented, Dr. Carter explained. But Eleanor shook her head. No, that's not what I mean. I feel better in my heart. I feel full of hope and life and happiness. She looked at Lily with tears in her eyes. Lily, what did you do to me? Lily giggled. I didn't do anything to you, Judge Vance. I just helped you remember who you really are underneath all the sadness. Judge Eleanor tried to sit up in bed and Dr. Carter helped her. As she moved, something extraordinary happened. She gasped and looked down at her legs. Doctor, she said, her voice trembling with excitement. I can feel my legs. Dr. Carter was skeptical. Judge Vance, sometimes after a head injury, people think they feel things that aren't there. No, Eleanor said with finality. I can truly feel them. She looked down at her legs under the hospital blanket and focused. Her right foot twitched slightly. Everyone in the room gasped. That's impossible, Dr. Carter whispered. Eleanor focused more, and both of her feet moved under the blanket. Lily, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. Was this real? Lily clapped her hands happily. Judge Vance, your spirit is completely awake now. And when your spirit fully woke up, it reminded your body how to work properly too. Dr. Carter stared at Eleanor's moving legs in complete shock. This defies all medical explanation. Your spinal cord was severely damaged. There is no way you should be able to move your legs. Eleanor looked at Lily with immense gratitude. You did it, didn't you? You really did it. Lily shook her head. No, Judge Vance. We did it together. I just showed you the way back to believing in yourself. You did all the real work. For the next hour, Judge Eleanor's ability to move her legs became stronger and more controlled. Dr. Carter ran test after test, all of them confirming what everyone could see. Judge Eleanor was regaining feeling and mobility in her legs. The 30-year veteran doctor stood there, his mind reeling from the medical theories that were collapsing around him. He looked from Lily to Eleanor, as if he were witnessing a divine act. I'm sorry, Eleanor said, her voice filled with emotion. I owe you an apology, Lily. I didn't truly believe. I wanted to, but deep down I thought your promise was impossible. I thought I was just being kind to a desperate father and his daughter. She looked at Lily with a mix of awe and gratitude. But Lily, you have shown me that miracles aren't just possible. They are real, and they happen when people love each other enough to believe in the impossible. Judge Eleanor sat up straight in the hospital bed. Mr. Mitchell, she said, looking at David, all charges against you are permanently dropped. Furthermore, I am going to recommend you for a new job. The hospital is looking for a maintenance supervisor, and I will personally ensure they hire you. The job comes with full medical insurance for you and Lily. Tears welled in David's eyes. Judge Vance, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me, Eleanor said, looking at Lily. Thank your extraordinary daughter, who reminded all of us that love can truly heal everything. 3 weeks later, Judge Eleanor Vance walked into her courtroom for the first time in 3 years. She still used a cane and walked slowly, but she was on her own 2 feet. The courtroom was packed with people who gave her a standing ovation as she made her way to the judge's bench. In the front row, David and Lily sat there. David wore a new shirt for his first day at his new job, and Lily wore a bright yellow dress that made her look like a ray of sunshine. Judge Eleanor sat down and smiled at the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "before we begin today's proceedings, I have something I would like to say." The courtroom fell silent. 3 weeks ago, Eleanor began, her voice echoing through the room. "A little girl taught me that miracles happen when love is stronger than fear. She taught me that healing isn't just about fixing broken bones. It's about mending broken spirits. And she taught me that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when we believe in each other." Eleanor looked directly at Lily and smiled. "Today, I am not just a judge in a wheelchair. I am a woman who has learned to dance in new ways, who has remembered how to hope, and who has seen firsthand that miracles are real." She picked up her gavel and looked around the courtroom. "Now, let's get to work. We have justice to serve and people to help." As the court proceedings began, Lily whispered to her father, "Daddy, can you see how happy Judge Vance is?" David smiled at his incredible daughter. "Yes, honey, I can." "That's what real healing looks like," Lily said wisely. "It's not just about making broken things work again. It's about helping people remember how beautiful their lives can be." Toto. 6 months later, Judge Eleanor Vance danced at her wedding to Dr. Julian Carter, who had fallen in love not just with her recovery, but with her newfound joy for life. She danced slowly and carefully, but she danced. In the front row of the wedding, David and Lily watched with pride as their friends celebrated a new beginning. Lily served as the flower girl, and she scattered rose petals down the aisle while humming a happy tune. As Judge Eleanor and Dr. Carter swayed together in their first dance, Lily leaned over to her father. "Daddy," she whispered, "do you know what the best thing about miracles is?" "What is it, honey?" Lily smiled that wise, beautiful smile that had started this entire miraculous journey. "The best thing is that when people see a miracle happen, they start to believe that all wonderful things are possible. And when people believe in wonderful things happen all the time." David held his daughter close as they watched their friends dance. He thought of his late wife's favorite saying, "Miracles happen when love is stronger than fear." Then looking at his incredible daughter, watching Judge Eleanor dancing with joy, and seeing a community that had learned to believe in the impossible, David knew that miracles weren't just something that happened now and then. With Lily in the world, miracles happened every day. And that's how Juliana Wilson rose from the ashes. Her story isn't just about finding her voice again. It's about finding the inner strength to stand up after a fall. If you've ever felt like you've lost all hope, remember Juliana's story. Sometimes a breakdown isn't the end. It's the beginning of an even greater journey. What do you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next inspiring story.